Assalamu alaikum everybody. Lina, Afnan, Naima, Nama. Can you hear me? All of you? That's good, excellent. Thank you, Nama. Okay, I had to log out and then log in because there was some technical fault somehow. Okay, where did we stop last time? You know, I'm not quite sure. Did we finish chapter 7 or was it halfway through? Have we just started with it or we finished? Because I teach the other group and we finished chapter 7 with together yesterday. So I don't know, have we finished it together? Chapter 7? Which is dealing with language and nation. Hello, Afnan, Lina, Nama. Can you hear me? Have I finished chapter 7? Sorry. Because we have finished it with group 1. Are you hearing me? Nama, Lina, Afnan, are you hearing? Do you hear me? Lina, Afnan left. Okay, Nama, Afnan, Nama, Lina. Have we finished with chapter 7? Shall we start with chapter 8 or haven't we finished? You don't think we have finished, right? Okay. So we'll try to discuss chapters. But any more confirmation from the rest of the ladies that are attending? Because we were talking about those areas in the world, those nations, where language has got a special, maybe Lulwa can help us. Lulwa, have we finished chapter 7 or we haven't? Hi Lulwa, hi. Yeah, where did we stop last time, ya Lulwa? We finished chapter 7. Thank you very much. Shufti, Nama, you're not following? I thought we finished because, you know, remember we discussed all those points related to Uganda, Kampala, and Switzerland, and German, and Papua New Guyana, and all these related points to Sami Lap. Remember that Sami Lap minority language, and then we discussed the heteronymous language, which is the variety that is non-standard, and you find it in Norway and in other places in the world, as well as the autonomous language, which is the standard language. Right, okay. And then we talked about the indigenous language, which is the minority language that is learned by its own native speakers and so on. Okay, chapter 8 now, which is talking about language and geography. Okay, language and geography here shows the relation between social dialects and geographic dialects, such as that regional linguistic differentiation. It's not a long chapter though, but it's full of maps and attractive information concerning England and the United States of America, as well as some parts in Europe, because it has got lots of related information to geography. And those are the areas of discussion, as well as India, the Indian subcontinent, where Tamil, Kurd, and Marathi and Hindi are used, and they are in a way related to the geographic divisions. Okay, so if we start discussing on page 147, there is that kind of discussion that is related to geographical dialect. Okay. So what's the relation between geographic dialect and regional linguistics? Differentiation is greatest at the level of varieties. Some unlike standard English, right? This is true in many other countries also. So the social and linguistic reasons, so there are social and linguistic reasons, and that's what we are doing, sociolinguistics, for the development of regional differences of the type, and this is complex and by no means completely understood. So they are clearly the result of language changing in different ways in different places. But the actual purpose of linguistic change, right, is something we have still to learn much about. Earlier in this book, we briefly discussed the importance of the development of regional dialects, of geographical features, such as barriers, frontiers, i.e., and distance. So the linguistic innovation, a new word, a new pronunciation, a new usage occur at the particular place. It may subsequently spread to other areas, particularly those earliest to it. So long and no serious barriers to communication intervene. So if an innovation started, for example, in London, we would expect it to find that it later began to be used, for example, in Cambridge, because London is about 2 hours away from Cambridge, or 2 hours and a half. In the center of England, for example, which is about 3 to 4 hours away, the change, or that kind of change that occurred in London, would then reach there. And in Carlisle, which is in Scotland, the top furthest point in the north, far in the north, might reach it later, of course. So it might, though, take considerably longer to reach, for example, Belfast, which is in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, because of the sea, the Irish Sea. This is an obvious point to start our discussion in this chapter, and one that does not apply only to language. So all technological and behavioral innovations are subject to the same process. So that's how it works. A good example of a linguistic innovation which has been subject to this kind of process is the loss in English of the I'll write it down, this is important, the loss of the pre-vocalic in England. We talked a lot about this one. In the UK, because in the United States, the standard American English has got the R very clear. In the UK, as in words like car and cart, that R is not pronounced in the UK. In most of the UK areas, let us say, not all of it. So here, we discussed that in chapter 1, remember? So we have the map here on page C, map, on page 142. No, 149, sorry. Okay, so here, This map shows is based on the survey of traditional dialects, conservation rural dialects. So the dark areas where farm and yard have non-prevocalic R, so it disappears. So this study has been carried during the 50s and the 60s under the direction of someone called Harold Orton at the University of Leeds, and shows those areas of English or of England where the loss of non-prevocalic R in the pronunciation of words like yard, farm, car, all of these, has not yet taken place, i.e. the rural areas are still pronouncing the R. And that's how you get to recognize them and their positions, the places where they come from their dialect. So if we did not know already from other sources such as spelling that it is the form without the R, which is the newer. So in the past, if we don't know about the history, we wouldn't know that the form without the R is the newer form. And that's the importance of this kind of study. Okay, it traces the history back of the development of pronunciation. And here, the separation of the three relatively peripheral areas shown on the map, south, west, and I'll write them down for you because this is important for the point to develop areas, which are the three main areas: south where London is, southwest is where Bath is, for example, and Exeter, and Devonshire. And the north, the areas are the south, the southwest, the north west, and that northwest is where Merseyside and Lancaster and those areas, okay, as well as the northeast and the northeast in Scotland above there. So these are the three areas up to into Scotland, in England, south and north, and in Scotland, would suggest most strongly that this was the case. What case? The occurrence or the existence of the R in pre-vocalic position. An identical innovation is unlikely to start in three separate areas at once. So it will take time because of the geographic distances between them. The configuration of the R pre-pronunciation areas on the map also, okay, suggests that the innovation began somewhere in the center. Okay, if you look at the map, you can see that the center and east of England, it spread before the spreading north and west. So that's how it creeps, it moves. Although we cannot be certain from the map alone, of course, but map shows some kind of indication when the innovation began. The map doesn't really detail us with the historic changes. Sociolinguistically speaking now, this map represents a considerable simplification, of course. It doesn't show lots of details of the true state of affairs concerning non-prevocalic R in England. Number one, first, because it's confined to only two words, which are, what did we say, car, cart, and farm. Yard and farm. These are the two words, yard and farm. And these two words were examined. So, we need more data, of course, to have more precise details. So that's why an examination of data for other words would reveal additional areas, such as part of the East Yorkshire in the eastern and northern side, where non-prevocalic R may be pronounced. Secondly, it is socially very incompetent. It's not enough. Chiefly the discussion of the same feature in chapter 2. And all along the eastern end or edge of the southwestern area, okay? For instance, it's only all the speakers. So all the speakers retain their own dialect. Are you following? Are you all opening on that map? Because if you don't open, I wouldn't be talking something important for anybody. Thank you, Munira. Very well done, Munira. Maram, Lina, Lulu, Afnan, Nama. Okay, well done, well done. Excellent. So the main point is that it says when there is some kind of change that occurs in one area, geographically, it depends on the distance and how speedy the change goes along. And that map has got a very general kind of information because it might be confined to people who are older people. Older people don't change, of course, they don't change their pronunciation, so might be incorrect or imprecise. And it is socially very incomplete. And all along the eastern edge of the southwest area, for instance, it's only older speakers from the lower social class, who are the R pronouncers. They call them R pronouncers. Let me write it down. This is important for pronouncers. This is important for following up the discussion, really. So that as far as language is concerned in England. Now, so there it is. The third reason, thirdly, the map gives information only for rural linguistic varieties, i.e. not the city dwellers, not people who are living in the city with lots of changes. For many urban areas or city areas, okay, particularly the larger towns like London, Glasgow, Manchester, Birmingham, Brighton, all these big towns, and even Liverpool and, York, Leeds, all that, the impression given is very inaccurate since, unlike the rural areas, they may be entirely are lost. This is true of Liverpool, for example. We were talking about Liverpool, there is a complete R loss. So the reason for this difference between urban and rural accents is that, I might ask you, give me some reasons. Why is the difference between rural and urban differences in accents? Accents, i.e. The existence of accents is the differences in phonemes, in sounds like the R and the like vowels, certain vowels, and so on. This is the accent. And also the stress, the position of stress on the word itself. So is that linguistic innovations, like other innovations, often spread from one urban center to another in cities. From one urban center, this is very important, to another. Rurals are more conservative and their society is more closed, so they don't allow the change quickly. The change comes, but it's very slow and it takes time. This is due to the generally due to reasons of economic, demographic, and cultural domains or dominance to town or the country and to the structure of the communication network. So here it depends also on the structure of communication and how much people travel. The communication network, not only that, because in England the communication network is really, really developed. It's very active, but people economically are not all capable of traveling that much. They stay where they are for the rest of their lives. So the spread of linguistic features here, and I'm reading on page 150, please. Okay, that's what it says concerning the spread of the linguistic features from one area to another. And it's therefore not dependent solely on proximity. Okay, and innovation starting in London is quite likely to reach Bristol, for example. You know where does it occur, Bristol? On the west of London, exactly on the same line of London on the west. It's quite likely to reach Bristol before it reaches rural Wiltshire, for example. Wiltshire is around London, but it's rural. Why? Because of the facilities in communication network. There is a direct train between London to Bristol, and people come and go more often than to rural areas, because Bristol is one of the big cities, relatively speaking. Although the latter is nearer, although Wiltshire is nearer than Bristol, but means of communication to Bristol from London is easier. Another example is from USA, in Chicago. If you see with me, a Chicago-based innovation is likely to get to Rockford, Illinois, earlier than to some smaller towns in between, because also of ease in communication network. So the speech of Manchester in England, in the United Kingdom, too, is in many ways more likely that it resembles the London speech than the traditional rural dialects of the village, مثلا in nearby Cheshire, which is near London. Wa alaikum salam, Afrah. What do you want to say? Afrah, have you just joined? Hello? Afrah, Abu Shamla Hakami, have you just joined, or do you have a question? Do you have a question, Afrah? Yeah. Yes, what? Do you have a question? Let me write it down. Do you? Not so far. Okay, I understand. Wa alaikum salam, Afrah. Okay. Right. Afrah, we are discussing geography with relation to language change and especially accent. We started discussing some changes that might happen in London and how fast and how slow would this reach other areas in the United Kingdom and why. Then we moved to Chicago as another example, and now we are on page 150 discussing, for example, the speech in Manchester resembles the speech in London in terms of accent and pronunciation and even usage of vocabulary and all that, more than a place next to London, which is the Hyde, Cheshire. Look at the list, examine with me the list about pronunciation on page 150, please. You see here, there are some words, like 4 of them, with the vowels A and O. And we try to see how they are pronounced in London, in Manchester, and in Hyde, Cheshire, nearby Cheshire, a village nearby Cheshire. So brush would be pronounced as brush in London, brush, in Manchester, and brace, in Hyde, Cheshire, brace. Such is pronounced as such in London, such you know, not sa, but closed mouth like round. Soch in Manchester and Sitch in Hyde, Cheshire. Tough is like that in London, tough. Manchester, tough. And in Hyde, Cheshire is tough, like more back. Put is like put in Manchester, put as well. And in Cheshire is like put. You know, there is a T that is changed into like put. Okay, the Manchester and London forms are not really identical, but there is a regular relationship between them. Usually when there is an A, in London it's O, in Manchester like bus, about bus. But maybe it's base in Cheshire, in that Hyde village. Right, so you understand now why is the reason. And you have had an idea now about the vowels that they are very remarked, the difference between those A and O vowels in Manchester and London. So one interesting problem for sociolinguistics is that what? For which we have not yet found a solution, is why some linguistic innovations spread faster than others. Some of the linguistic innovations tend to spread even faster than this. Why? Is it the decision of people, or is it something else? The difference between the London A and the Manchester O, as in tough and tough, is the result of the original pronunciation of O being replaced by the new pronunciation A in London. That's how it works, which started life as an innovation in London, probably in the 16th century, and 17th something, maybe during Shakespearean time. This innovation has since spread northward and westward, but was traveled so slowly. Of course, it doesn't change in few years or in tens of years. It takes longer time. The merge of fa and sa, you know, like three and free, and thing and thing, like that, you know, number 3 is pronounced as free in London. And there is also another variation of pronouncing as free or fry, actually not free, fry. However, so that thing is pronounced as thing, you know, and it was for many decades as well known feature. It's a well-known feature in London this time, because people in Manchester, for example, never pronounce it as free. They always pronounce it as free, you know. So suddenly, through in recent years, it has started spreading very, very rapidly, not only in London but outside London as well. And it seems to have arrived maybe in Norwich, in East Anglia, in the eastern northern part of above London, and also in the 70s, and also in another place called Sheffield in the north of England during the 80s. And then it went down to Exeter in the southwest in the 90s. People there started to imitate the Londoners, maybe because they think that the Londoners are those dwellers of the capital, and what they say is something nice, desirable. The important, but I mean, this is not definite. I mean, linguists are still looking for the reason. So the importance of the role of critics or of cities in diffusing innovations into the surrounding countryside cannot be seen on the maps. The maps are just giving us rough information. Okay? So here, for example, on page C, page 151, please, so that we can look at the lists that are given where are the cities and their places in the United Kingdom. Yani, please try to remember them. Don't say, Wallahi, we're not concerned about this. Why do we have to study about the United Kingdom? I mean, we make our study focused on one center, and then we go and spread our knowledge around other places. So here, areas of modern English, i.e. the English that most people now speak, as opposed to traditional dialects such as the Hyde. So we have given these areas names such as Central North, South Midland, yani, according to the geographic position. But a number of regions are basically the areas dominated demographically. And therefore culturally and linguistically, they are all related. We can't ignore one factor. By certain large cities. So these are the large cities we're talking about in the United Kingdom. I won't ask you, for example, like when you talk and when you criticize and analyze, of course you will have more logical and true analysis according to which you will be credited good marks. So it's going to help you. So please try to imagine them, put them on the map and remember them. If we say in the northeast, Newcastle, مثلا, occurs in the northeast part of the United Kingdom. Liverpool in Merseyside, which is more like the northwest. Yani it's opposite Newcastle. Newcastle is on the right side of the map and Liverpool is on the left side. Yani مقابل, it's opposite Newcastle. Now we have Manchester and it's in the northwest, yani شوية above Liverpool. About 40 minutes away from Liverpool. And then the West Midlands, in the middle, in the middle of the map, you find Birmingham occurring. This is a third, a fourth big city. Bristol is a fifth big city, and it occurs in the south, but center. As I told you, West London. Look at London and go to the left, you find Bristol, along the sea. There is London, of course, which is the capital, and it's called Home County. Home County, that's how they call it, but I will tell you, it's down the island to the, just above the bottom or the corner of the end of this island to the right, inside, on the North Sea. Some of other areas who have smaller cities, but they are not. Smaller cities, but they are not. 1 minute, please. Yes. So these are smaller cities that are mentioned on the same page, which is on the same, following this list. There is Central Lancashire, there is Blackburn. It's under Blackpool, right? So it's called Blackburn. There is Hull, and its home side, which is to the northern central. Humberside, which is the name of the county, Muqata, the county like Londonshire, Muqata London, and so on. There is Lincoln in northeast Midland, Gloucester in upper southwest, Plymouth, lower southwest, and East Anglia, which is above London, that half circle kind of drawing on the map you can find. That one is called East Anglia, which is the Muqata'a, the shire is called East Anglia. Norwich is one of the, not very big cities, but medium-sized city. Fairly smaller than places like Manchester and London, and they didn't even mention cities in Scotland. In Scotland, they have Glasgow is a big city, And Edinburgh is another very big city. Yani they call Edinburgh the cultural capital, and Glasgow is the trade capital. Yani both of these cities are really big. Glasgow is really big, maybe as big as Birmingham, London. Anyway, so why do we say that? Because in Glasgow the R is a different kind of thing, pronounced as different than R or A. It's R, you know, the R. That's how they pronounce it. So the yard, they call it yard. Remember, you know, that's how they do it. So the R in Glasgow and in Scotland is different story altogether. This is also true for the rest of the sub-cities or smaller areas, which the only remaining area of the north of England to now retain the R. The R is still there in many areas as well. The change of dropping the R didn't reach. So the non-pre-vocalic R, as we have already noted, is gradually dying out in England. And this geographical shrinkage is a reflection of this fact. I myself believe that it's because English people feel, they don't say it, but they feel that it's more prestigious to drop the R because it's already dropped in London and London is the capital. I think so. Now, look please the map of page. Let's now have a look at this map. Oh dear, I thought it was writing. Map number 2 on page 152. So let's examine that map. They say map number 2. When I say 2, it becomes rugby. The map number 2. I won't use brackets. Okay. So here are the counties, the different shires or muqata'at. So above there, on the north, we have Scotland. Now down here, you can always write down the names of the cities as given. يعني عندنا مثلا Northeast County, and Central North, and then the Humberside, and then we have Central Lancashire and Merseyside where Liverpool occurs, and Central Lancashire where Lancaster occurs, and Manchester as well. Then we have Northwest Midlands. No, Manchester is in Northwest Midlands, I'm sorry. And then the Midlands Central, down, we find that Birmingham occurs. Then we have the Northeast Midlands, the East Midlands, East Anglia, where Norwich occurs. And then we have Wales, and we have England, and we have home countries where London occurs, and Central South. And then we have lower Southwest, where, what do we call it? Exeter occurs. Okay. So far in our look at the geographical diffusion, you know, spread, diffusion is spread of linguistic forms, okay, we have confined our attention to those cases where features of language can spread from one person to person, group to group, and eventually by means of travel from city to city, starting with a quite large distances. And another equally important method by means of which linguistic forms may spread, another method very important besides traveling, we have by means of which linguistic form may be spread, however, is for the speakers themselves to travel. So speakers to travel, and map number 3 on the following page, page number 154, page 154, map number 3, okay. That one shows the modern dialects of English in the United States and Canada. Canada is considered slightly rural in terms of accent than the United States. So here it's based on a considerable extent of the work of William Labov. Remember William Labov, our friend, that American linguist who has studied the New Yorker R. So what happened here is that his study and his associate studies also focused on Canada and the United States English. It will be seen that many of the lines on the map dividing one dialect area from another are lines which of course go horizontally on the map on page 154 and from left to right across the map. It's more horizontally than the map of the United Kingdom. Okay, from left to right. Actually, there are the results of the way in which North America was settled by English speakers, right? As well as we all know, settlers or settlement was from east to west in the United States, from east to west. Why? Why settlers? I want you to wake up with me. In the USA was from east to west. If you don't give me your answer. So settlers, why did it occur like that in the United States from east to west? Any expectation, any guessing from you young ladies? And of course the dialect spreads accordingly. Differences which have become established on the East Coast. Why did it start in the United States from the East Coast first, and then the settlers started to move to the West? In the early years of Anglophones. You know why Anglophones? Because the original people, اللي هم بنسميهم indigenous, the Red Indians, have their own, are having their own mother tongue, which is called heteronymous, the minority language. So here the Anglophone settlements being then transmitted across the country from east to west. Why? Fatin, the growth of the different dialects. Yes, not the growth, the spread of English especially. The spread of Anglophone, the English dialect. It spread according to the settlers that spread from the east coast of the United States towards the west. Why? No, what do you mean by spread? Spread, this is the word, spread. You know? Not really, no, Yanema. It's related to historical reason. Historically speaking, in the history. What happened in the United States in the 16th century? Before it was, ما كان لسه war يا أفنان. Was it already discovered, the continent? أنا أعطيكم clue. It was not discovered. Who discovered the continent of America? Come on, young ladies, why don't you read? انتوا بس قاعدين على الفيسبوك والانستغرام والاشياء هذه. Why? يعني this is history. أفنان، أفراح، رويدة، فاتن، لولو، لينا، مرام، منيرة. Come on, نعمة. Who discovered the United States and when? It was discovered in the 16th century. أنا هاني حلت. برافو عليكي منيرة. Christopher Columbus. Bravo, that's it. Yes, in the 16th century. So how did he discover that? With his marine army اللي هو الأسطول البحري. How do they discover them? They discover them from the eastern coast. That's why. Because discovering America started from the eastern coast. Accordingly, the spread starts from east to west. They didn't discover it from the west, they discovered it from the east. They thought it was India. Remember that story? You don't know about that story? Never mind, read about it please. انتوا عندكم access على الانترنت more than our time. So yeah, he went to India. He wanted to go to India from the other side of the world. After they figured out the world is round. Yeah, I know Yalulwa, you know it, but you have to relate it now. And then he thought he returned to India from the other side. Bravo, Aleki. I know you know it best. I want you to use the information that you already have. So, and the clue was really clear here in the book, especially on pages 151 as well as 153. And it goes along all the way down. You can see that New York City and Boston in the case of Eastern New England, يعني حتى there are names that are used, names of places like New York, Newark and Manchester and things are also named in America because people came from, from England and from Europe and from Spain. That's why we find Spanish as first language sometimes in some states in the United States as being first language or the second language, not French but Spanish, because they were those people who discovered it and come to do the trades and everything from Europe, United Kingdom and Spain. طيب, let's continue on page. Continue please with me on page 153. Okay. Notice also here that except for New York City and Boston, which are two cities on the eastern coast, right? In the case of Eastern New England, it's difficult to point to a single city as having a focal role, basic role in that. Notice also that the dialect areas here are much larger sometimes, very much large indeed, than the Eastern England. Why? Because England is only an island. And in case of the United States, we are dealing with more like a continent, not an island, but the vast distances that are found in America are very huge. So here it's telling you that this is a reflection of the fact that English has been spoken in England for a period of 1,500 years. But in North America, in the United States, it has been spoken for only 300 years. See the difference? So there has not been sufficient time in North America for linguistic change to lead to the development of small dialect areas. So that is a very good reason to remember. Why is it not having this kind of change? Small areas of dialects in the United States, like in the UK, because in the UK English has been used and spoken for 1,500 years, whereas in the United States it has been spoken for 300 years only, which is maybe 1/4 of the time that is spoken in the United. That's why English spreads more, covering bigger areas in North America and east of North America as well. So here, this is why too, dialect areas in east of North America are smaller than those in more recent settled west, because as we said earlier, The western part of the United States started to have settlers after the eastern side. Okay, and if you also compare that with the situation in Australia, a country which is as big geographically as the USA, it's a continent, you know, Australia, but which has yet virtually no regional differentiation at all, although there are now signs that it is just beginning to occur in the speech of young people. Why? Because they have the internet and the means of communication that is spreading so fast. And do you know how they discovered Australia? Well, they discovered Australia. They went down and they call it down under. And then English people discovered it and they want to put inhabitants in it. Do you know who were the inhabitants? Yani apart from the Australian original indigenous people who are called Aborigines, the Australian Aborigines, they have had a different look. Their look is dark and they're not like Africans. They are like the Australians, Aborigines. Look them up. Aborigines, bravo ya Munira, yes. And do you know who did English people bring to put from England as inhabitants to live in Australia? Try to guess. Try to go through your memory. Or if you haven't read that, let me tell you. Do you know or you don't know? Everybody. يعني لولو فاتن لينا أفنان أفراح مرام منيرة نعمة, all of you. Do you know who they bring? Fatin. I said Fatin already. No? Okay, I'll tell you. I mean, I was shocked at that time when I was younger than your age and I studied that in history. They brought all British prisoners and criminals to live in Australia so that they free England from them. They put them in Australia, they don't care, those English people at that time. And at the same time, to conquer Australia, يعني بدهم conquer, يعني they want to يستعمروها. So that's how English started to spread. Yeah, it's shocking. They made it like a prison island. يعني هم مش really prison. قالوا لهم يلا سيحوا هناك, روحوا. اللي يموت يموت, اللي يعيش يعيش. Do whatever you can to live and be the inhabitants of that island. يعني مش جزيرة السجناء. خلص خلوها their own. People there are English. وبعدين هم prisoners they used to be in UK because they were criminals and thieves and يعني committing from crimes and offenses. فصاروا هم in Australia calling the places according to the places in the United Kingdom. ففي places في أستراليا أماكن اسمهم كامبريدج ومانشستر وأكسفورد, you know. It's really shocking يعني when we learn things like that in history. Anyway, يا بنات, it's Maghrib prayer, but please, sorry, it's Asr prayer, but we will finish in about, yeah, sorry, that's right, Lulu, it's Asr. But we have half an hour. Let's finish our class and Asr will still be valid. So please, let's pray it after our class. So here, this is the big geographic area of Australia, which is as big as the United States, but the difference or the variation in dialect is quite less. Now young people started to have some modification and change on their dialect. And it's a sign now that it has just begun to occur in the speech of younger people because of, you know, the different ways of communication and so on. It is interesting to note that on map 2 on page 152, it shows the situation in England very different from that what we have been, what is the case 100 years ago. Then dialect boundaries would have been in rather different places, of course. Why? Because language moves. It doesn't stay still in one place. يعني حتى our dialect is different than our parents' dialect. Our parents' dialect is different than their parents, who are our grandparents, and that's how, I mean, dialect keeps on changing and changing. Okay, so we did some of the general comments on that map on page 154. So see the discussion on page 155, please. So on 155, there are dialectal changes in England. So the situation in England, for example, however, rather more complex than that. Of course, يعني they are simplifying the situation so that we can grab some point, يعني understand what's going on. What seems to be happening is that traditional dialects like those of Hyde in that area of Cheshire next to London, what we call it, Hyde, Cheshire, are disappearing. That's very, very remarkable, you know. And the larger modern dialect areas which do remain, as shown on map number 2, are nevertheless continuing to diverge from one another, i.e. split and divide. So for example, the Merseyside area where Liverpool is increasingly characterized by rather dramatic sound change in which the consonants ta, and ka are increasingly becoming fricatives. يعني فيهم احتكاك ka and sa and fa, you know, like as if there is a sa following. Yeah, so are increasingly becoming fricatives, so that, for example, lock can now sound very much like the Scottish speaker saying loch, like that, loch. And there is a kha, but not the Arabic kha, be careful. The Arabic kha is really strong. We are strong people with strong dialect and strong sounds and strong food and strong everything, you know. That's what we are. So there is even some sign that the consonant ta may disappear altogether in some positions as part of this process. So like bats, you know, like bats instead of bats, and bat instead of having any one of them, neither ta nor sa. Okay, so the same kind of divergence of one region from another can be seen also in the United States of America. For instance, the island north region is characterized by the change, which is currently taking it away linguistically from one area to another of the North America, and which is not occurring anywhere else. And this is the kind of change which has become known as the northern cities vowel shift. So that's we call it, that's very important, vowel shift. You will find that also discussed in the glossary, the vowel shift theory, which is typical of the accent of young people. So young people's speech becomes different because of this kind of vowel shift. And in America, as was discussed in chapter number 3, particularly in cities such as Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Buffalo, and which is a kind of a circular movement, you know, of vowels, which represent one of the most dramatic changes ever to have taken place in the history of pronunciation of English. Like, for example, examples are given to us on words like coat, toad, law, fall, etc. So here, the vowel of notes and all the similar words, which I have just said, is moving towards the position where the vowels or the vowel of not is used, like caught instead of caught, and taught instead of taught. So instead of that long one, and yeah, yes. So not is moving forward to the position of not like that, not. And the a vowel of not has dramatically altered its pronunciation to the kind of ia, niyat quality described of New York vowel shift. So we have just mentioned, in connection with the formation of American dialect area, the role that the movement of people can play in the spreading of linguistic form. So what kind of role do we have in our community? Do you have any kind of vowel shift that young people or you yourself can see in your own dialect which is different than your parents' age generation people? In Arabic, for example, I can't think of any myself, but in the Arabic dialect of Hijaz. Okay. Maybe, yes, but I want you to think. But I mean, can't you think of any? Can't you remember anything that comes to your mind? Yes. In Al-Qasim, the way you say khal, yes, how do you say khal? Like khal and khal, or how? What do you mean? You might be right, by the way. Yani when you say it with dark L, khal, yeah, khali. Yeah, tasqil al-lam is dark L, yeah, with the dark L, like that. The dark la. Yeah, like when you say leave and leave. I see, yeah. Okay, galam or galam. That's right. Bravo alaikum. You see, you have beautiful way of thinking. It's true. You are absolutely right. Yes. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's fine. Let's carry on the same page. Page number 156. It's still discussing these kinds of how it was that the different dialect area in the east coast of the United States, again the east coast, which was first discovered by Christopher Columbus, yeah? So there were three factors at work here. First, the first factor is that we have suggested that the growth of the different dialects that were later to spread westward was due in England to the fact that different linguistic changes had taken place over time in different places. Okay? There is, however, a second important reason with respect between England and the United States of America. Who respects the other more, do you think? Yeah, I know, Yalulu. I'm trying my best to pronounce it. Yeah, I know. I'm a linguist, you know. So I must see and feel and hear things sensitively. I have to be really sensitive. Thank you anyway. Right, Lulwa and Bonira, Lina, Fatin, everybody who is attending Afrah and Nema. Could you see with me my question? They say that, I mean, differences in pronunciation between the United States of America and England are affected. There is some kind of respect between England and the United States. But who respects who more? Does England respect the United States, you think, or the other way around? What do you think? From the history, from related reasons of that kind, what do you think? I'll tell you, yes, America, America respect England more, that's right. Yes, USA respect England more, bravo alaikum. Yes, because of the historical reason and also educational reason, education-wise, although in America, technology is very, very much more developed, but this is not only the only reason that we look at historically, and the United States was discovered in later history. England used to have a stronger history, and they have great historical events and things and education, all that. So England, United States look at the pronunciation by English people as being something they would wish to imitate. So American English was in original a colonial variety, a colonial variety of the language. The basic standard English is the British English, That's why when Americans come to deal with the English, British English, instead of writing program, for example, all the writings, all the other different kinds of writings, they start having like color. That is how British English used this, and they simplified it, so it becomes a variety of English, okay? Here, there is a reference to Scottish English and the Midland and all that. To go back to the United Kingdom, a region on the east coast and the area and so on, just want to take you to Scotland. A large number of arrivals from Scotland and Southern Ireland who naturally brought their Scottish accent with them, and the Northern Irish Scottish, like when we discussed in chapter 7. Yes, hi. Okay, I don't know, it stopped recording and now it came back. So I hope are you all hearing me? You hear? Okay, that's good. Thank you, Afrah and Munir and all. Okay, so English people would say it's a long way to go. Americans would say it's a long way to go. And there are plenty of other differences in structural forms as well, not only in pronunciation, So the variation, and we have just seen in spelling as well. Okay, and thirdly, the story obviously does not end there either. We have to recognize that another important factor is that now here on the eastern seaboard was exclusively settled by people from one particular area of the British Isles. The point is that everywhere in North America to which English was taken would have been the scene in the early years of settlement, considering a considerable dialect mixture. So we have this kind of dialect mixture because of this. So all of these, when we have them on land, they are of course related to some historical reasons and others. Remember the previous American president, Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan used to say that about himself, that he himself is originally from where? Do you remember? Maybe you were very young at that time. But I mean, have you heard about this? He is originally from Ireland. Yes, he's Irish originally. Some others are from Manchester, for example, from the eastern part, or no, the western of the western part of the United Kingdom. Okay, here, what do we have? One of the things, the dialect mixture situation would not have lasted more than, of course, a generation, or possibly two maximum at most, and 1 or 2 generations. Okay? And in the end, everybody in a given location would have ended by leveling out the original dialect according to the area. Okay, what else? There is also what we call coinization. To coin, i.e. to create a new coinization. See page 157. And I will write that one. يعني coining of that kind of term that is borrowed from ancient Greek, the word koine, which means general or common, from the ancient Greek language. So exactly how this coinization, which is new or general and common, happens in the United States of America, is now several hundred years later difficult to reconstruct. However, we have some clues about the coinization or the general or common situation. Okay, process. The process that takes place, which is settling the kind of dialect in a place called New Zealand. Where does New Zealand occur? Where is the location of New Zealand in the world? يعني اليوم عندنا إحنا geography lesson. New Zealand, where does it occur? New Zealand. New Zealanders are very clever people, by the way. They're so brilliant. Bravo عليكي يا لولو, mashallah عليكي. You are great in geography. I'm really impressed. Well done. That's excellent. New Zealand is in particular, it's on the right top of Australia, but it's down there. بعد الإسلندز اللي هو far east. Right, excellent, well done. So here they speak English as well. لأنه بالطريق هيك الإنجليز برضو احتلوها معلش they colonize it. And the English of New Zealand is more recently formed major variety of the language. You know, they call the English of the world that is spoken here, these are new world Englishes. وفي lots of researches that have been done, and I have done it as well. I have done a research on world Englishes, focusing on the English as spoken in the Gulf by people from the Gulf, from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and all that. So in New Zealand, this is one variety of English. In Australia, a different variety of English. In China and in Hong Kong and in all these areas, there is their own Englishes. And as well as in India, there is another English which is different. The English used in Canada is different. And the English of the United States of America is also different. There are the Englishes that are used in Africa, Uganda, and Kenya, and all these areas which used to be colonized by England. England, they were the pirates, قراصنة العالم. During the 14th to 15th to 16th century, قرصنوا في العالم كله. فالإنجليش was spread, and that is the effect, that is the proof. They can't deny it. Anyway, so the English of New Zealand is the most recently formed major variety of English. English speakers did not arrive from the British Isles in large numbers, unlike Australia. بالطريق يعني in 1840s, okay, so fortunately they have some recordings of what people born in New Zealand in the period of 1850 to 1890 sound like. They didn't mix with native speakers, unlike Australia and unlike مثلا Canada and unlike يعني حتى كندا الفلاج تبعها محطوط عليه the English flag as well, part of the Commonwealth. Do you know Commonwealth? Have you heard about Commonwealth, yeah, young ladies? Yes, of course, Afrah, mashallah, yani, I like your information in history and geography. So the Commonwealth areas, لسه الملكة يعني حتموت عليهم. Still, قالت لهم take your freedom but you are part of us. مستعمرة، برافو عليك. Yes, لسه لازالوا مستعمرين تحت هذا. ف you can see still up till today على الكورنر تبع الأعلام الفلاج الناشونال فلاج تبعتهم of their countries you find a small corner of the English flag. يعني لسه عندهم. So that's the reason. For New Zealanders, the people from New Zealand did not get a direct contact with native speakers of English. Only some recordings from here and there, recorded in 1940s from the radio forecast and some pioneer reminiscences and what we can learn from this. What we can learn from this, the following. What do we learn from this? Number one, see page 100, I'm seeing page 158. Are you all with me, young ladies? And احنا towards the end, please. والend حلوة يعني بتكون احنا خلاص we settle things and we want to see what happens. So what do we learn from this is number one, first generation of New Zealand born Anglophones, you know, who grew up in situations where a whole mixture of dialects from different parts of the mother country were spoken, اللي هم their own mother country, New Zealand. And they seem to have pleased themselves, طبعا, without, of course, giving it any conscious thought, subconsciously, without thinking and without realizing about which vowels and which consonants they would speak. So people from New Zealand have their own dialect. You can differentiate this. So they, therefore, use new combination of features. One woman pronounced here and there as if she were Scottish. You know how Scottish people pronounce them, like here and there, here and there. And I always find it difficult for me to differentiate sometimes people from New Zealand. I always think they might be maybe Scottish, maybe Australian, because of this. So they mix these things. And out, as if she comes from London, out, out, that's how they pronounce it. And these combinations would differ from one person to another. So from New Zealand, أنا بلاقيها كتير صعبة عليا. So there is modern New Zealand, okay? So that is all about the case of New Zealand. Read about the mixed and the mixture. So that's what we mean by mixed dialects. And that is the case of New Zealand. روحوا اقروا عن New Zealand. شوفوا كيف هم يعني. Very interesting to learn about other people's. Okay, so here from New Zealand, some letters, not consonants, not only vowels, like the ha in house is dropped like house. They say instead of house, like house. Because although this is normal in south of England, it was not found in East England or Scotland of Ireland. So هم بياخدوا الفاوز مرات بيشبه Scotland, some other time بيشبه some letters London and the south and the British Isles dialects and similar propositions, etc. We saw above that the distance is clearly an important factor in the spread of linguistic forms. Okay, on page 159 now. Okay, on that page, there is that kind of discussion in language barrier and what kind of barriers, the role of social barriers in the formation of social class dialects. So it's not really easy for social classes to mix easy. I mean, if they think they are from higher class, they don't go and mix with middle class and so on. Surprisingly enough, it does not necessarily have a significant slowing down effect, mainly language barrier. So linguistic innovations, it appears, spread not only from one regional or social variety of the same language to another. They may also spread from one language into another language. An interesting example of the linguistic feature that has spread in this way is the European uvular R. You know, the uvular R, the Gha, which is similar to our Arabic ghain. The uvular Gha, and we find this hatta Israelis language have got lots of Gha, but we have it in Paris, the Parisian Gha. Okay? It is thought that up until at least the 16th century, all European languages have had the R side sound, which was pronounced as R, is still pronounced today in many styles of Scots English or Italian. A tongue tip like r, tongue tip trill. When you roll it and say r, not the Arabic r, but slightly lighter than the Arabic. We have everything strong, as I told you. The French R, which is the uvular, and that's how it is phonetically presented, big R. That's the Parisian R. They call it Parisian, Parisian French. They call it, which is the standard French, using the R. Arrivé, they would say arrivé, but when you say arrivé for arrive, no, not repeating the r of rah. No, but say it like r, you know, like rain, Arabic rain. So they find it more refined in Paris to use it like that. When you say arrivé, they know that you are not from cities. You are from rural and villages, from rural area or villages. Same thing you find. I want you to read about same kind of thing in German, in Dutch speakers as well, different parts of Europe, like Northumberland, Durham in the United Kingdom, in also some parts of Europe and so on. Look at the map. Map number 4 on page 160. That is a map of the uvular R in Europe. The dark areas is where the uvular R is found, and you can be surprised. And the dotted lines is where language barrier boundaries, and these are language boundaries and not political or national boundaries or frontiers. Okay? On page 161, it's talking about the Indo-European languages. In Bulgaria, in Romania, remember those Greece, Albanian, all these Indo-European languages, and Slavic languages, like Slavic languages, and then Greek and Albanian. These are all Indo-European, and they descend from that big language, mother language. And then one of the most interesting features of the Balkan languages, Balkan, Bahr al-Balkan, is the fact that 4 of them have a postponed definite article. They have it later, يعني appearing later. So instead of saying the machine, they say machine the. Okay? So the form corresponding to the in English is placed after the noun, machine the. Remember. So in Albanian it says mechanic, mechanico, mechanico. O here is the. Bulgarian would say mechanico, mechanicot. Macedonian, remember, it's like mechanic, mechanikarot. Ot is the. And Romanian has got mechanico, mechanicol, and all is the. Okay, it all refers to historical, not only geographic kind of that. Yes. Go down on page 162. You will have other examples. Many examples similar to linguistic areas can be found in different parts of the world. The Indian subcontinent. Read about that, please. On pages 162, 163, and 164 about the Indian subcontinent. Okay, read about that. It's very, very interesting indeed. And it talks about the Indo-European languages as well as in relation to Hindi, Marathi, and Dravidian languages with relation to Tamil and Kurd. In India, there are plenty of languages, at least 400 languages that are known, and they are the standard. Otherwise, there are sub-languages and other dialects and rural dialects that can be found, and they are not even, some of them, studied or recognized yet. Okay, to end our class, we end it by saying at present English is a source of loan words from very many languages, by the way. And English is a prestigious one, but for many reasons it became the world's communication language for communication. So, and here particularly in Europe. So borrowing, the borrowings occur in English from European languages, French, German, everything, even from Arabic. Like when you say racket, مأخوذة من راحة, banana from al-banan, and so on. And okay, magazine in English, magazine مأخوذة من مخزن, the Arabic word مخزن. Okay, so English is a lingua franca, remember? It's a lingua franca in many societies and is second language in other societies, and it is a foreign language in other societies. It's the medium of international communication, rather to the former, world political, economic, educational, and scientific dominance of Britain and the similar present domain of the United States of America. And that's the end of chapter 8. Next week, we will meet, inshallah, to cover language and contact, and the 10th chapter, which is language and humanity. Any question before you leave, girls? Could you sign out? Before we actually close everything, because otherwise the recording will not be. Don't forget to sign out. All the best, and thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Recording stop.